Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Does Rose Still Read? Now there are two parts to this answer. One, yes I do. It's just a vast majority of the things that I've been reading in the past two-ish months, because this is our 2019 wrap-up essentially of November and December. I've been just reading fanfiction. And the other reason is, as I mentioned in my booktube newbies tag, the introduction of me, and yeah. Anyway, that one, I said that not only was I going to do book-ish content, I was also going to do reviews and general geek things and some travel videos every once in a blue moon, so that's exactly what I've been putting out. Okay, so speaking of books and fanfiction, since I have zero grasp of how many of you actually are interested in fanfiction, I will be talking about the books that I read in November and December. Spoiler alert, it's not very many. And then after that, I will talk about the fanfiction that I've been indulging in. Welcome to my channel, guys, where I am now just unabashedly talking about the fanfiction that I really enjoy. Okay, by the way, in regards to fanfiction, as I've mentioned in my fanfiction author recommendation video, which you can click up here or I'll put that link in the description box below, I did mention that unless a fanfiction author specifically requests for critiques, don't do it. That's just a big no-no. So I'm not going to be critiquing the fanfiction that I will end up talking about. I'm just gonna say why I liked it so much. And I will, of course, link below all of the fanfiction stories that I end up talking about. Okay, I'll be honest, I only read 2 whole-ass books in the entire months of November and December. Look, here's the big deal about fanfiction for me, and just the big appeal, I should actually say, and that is the fact that when you read fanfiction, you're already familiar with the world and the characters, so you don't have to worry about adjusting to anything new the way that you do with, physical books. So I already know how I feel about the characters and the world, so sometimes I just want to read about 10,000 versions of my favorite relationships and pairings coming together and falling in love. Is that too much to ask? I don't really think so. But funny enough, the 2 books that I read were nonfiction. But, my whole point about fanfiction, that still stands. Anyway, okay, the 2 books that I read are essentially the same thing. What I mean is this. You can't tell. There we go. This is the wonderful book of the life-changing magic of tidying up, the Japanese art of decluttering and organizing, by Marie Kondo. I think this was originally published in 2011. There's also a manga version of this, which came out, I would have to look that up to see when that came out, but I read the manga version first, and then I read this. But even before I read the manga, I watched the Netflix Tidying Up with Marie Kondo, whatever it's called on Netflix. I watched that, then the manga, then this book. Wonderful. I'm glad we got that straight. When it comes to the manga version, the great thing about that is it's all visuals, it's all pictures, and it's a very quick and easy read. I think it took me like 2 or 3 days to get through that. Whereas this particular version, it's 100% text. With that in mind, I feel like the only downside about this text-based version is the fact that there are no visuals to go with it, and I'm a visual person, and especially since there are times in the book where she is explaining how to fold things, for instance. I think it's better to have visuals rather than trying to understand what she's saying from her descriptions. I feel like her descriptions, they do work, but point is, I like visuals, and I do wish this had visuals, and that's the only downside. And I would say the only downside or weakness of the manga version is simply that it does not go into enough detail that would make certain topics clearer for the reader, if that makes sense. I hope it does. If I had to tell you which one to read over the other, if you wanted to do that, then I would say go for the text-only version because of the fact that it has such an in-depth guide into finding what sparks joy in your life. Part of what is so revolutionary about the KonMari method is that the goal is not to get rid of as much as you can. It's specifically about keeping what sparks joy, so it's going to vary from person to person. Some people may end up keeping a lot of things and another person may end up getting rid of a lot of stuff. Yeah, it depends on the person. Side note, I'm actually very similar to Marie Kondo in the sense that since I was a little kid, I've also enjoyed organizing and tidying up and cleaning things. Definitely not to the extent that Marie Kondo did, considering she had a breakdown over this when she was a teenager. It never went that far for me, but I have enjoyed tidying and cleaning. I've definitely been refining in what I decide to keep and what I don't keep in my life as time has gone on. But reading both of the books and watching the Marie Kondo show, it's really made everything properly click into place for me, if that makes sense. She's made everything so much clearer. I do want to say that, yes, my husband and I have been working on the KonMari method. He hasn't read the books, but he at least watched the show, so together we can do this. So at the risk of rambling on, I do want to state that her particular method and teachings is also about how to appreciate and treasure the things that you do decide to keep, the things that spark joy. And I kid you not, like, her process, she gives you the tools and the power to learn how to let go of things in your past that you know that you've been clinging on to, and you really need to move forward and be more present in your life and continue on. I don't know, guys. It's all pretty amazing. Okay, I've talked enough about that. Go read the books. I think I need to address the elephant in the room. For the past 2 months, I have been paused. I kid you, I have 70 pages left, gosh darn it, in the book Dracula by Bram Stoker. For some unfathomable reason, I have not finished it, guys. So why am I even bringing this up? Why am I talking about a book that I have not finished? Well, because I'm tired of my own bullshit. I know I haven't finished it, but I am ready to talk about this book because who knows when I'm actually gonna finish it. Because I'm just weird like that and unpredictable like that, I could end up finishing this like 2 days from now, and it's just like, or it could be like at the very end of this year. Who flippin' knows? So I just want to talk about it now. Is that cool with you all? Great, because that's what I'm doing. Apparently I've reached some sort of strange breaking point on this whole thing. I approached reading this book with a sort of detachment because I don't like to be scared. And it felt kind of apt because, as it turns out, our main guy, Dracula, he's very detached in his own way and lives his immortal life in a state of almost gleeful apathy. With the powers and the abilities and immortality that he possesses, Dracula very much plays with the world that is around him, and it's like he's a puppet master and everyone else is his puppets and he gets to play with them. He's also kind of unpredictable, so that's properly unnerving. Okay, going back to my point of reading this book with a sort of detachment, I knew that I didn't want to allow myself to be fully immersed in this world, because if I did, I would probably have nightmares for like years to come. This famous horror book, it deserves its infamy. That's what I'm putting out there. So this story, it takes place in the late 19th century. Again, I've been pausing this book for 2 months, so the details are starting to become blurred. Not a good sign. Anyways, it's told from 3 to 4 main character point of views. Essentially, this story, it follows our main characters as they try to unravel this, the mystery of who Dracula is, what he is, and how to stop this pseudo king of vampires from just implementing harm and despair on a bunch of innocent people. Also, the story is told in a non-linear fashion, at least for part of it. Why is it taking me so long to finish this book? I think there are a few reasons that I can give. While I swear it's enjoyable. Number one, the language or the prose of this book, I'm far more used to contemporary writing, so the writing style of this book has slowed me down a little bit. It's not hard, it's just slowed me down. Number 2, the mixed media in the story. Number 3, the general mystery to the story. So because it's a mystery, I want to savor that. I very much am. And number 4, I just keep getting distracted by fan fiction. I swear that could be the title of my autobiography. Please do not judge my absurd inability to finish this book from deterring you from reading this, because this is me saying, guys, I do recommend this book. Someday it will be complete. And even though I have not finished it, I feel confident, unless something very drastic happens in the last 70 pages of the book, I feel confident that I will end up rating this book somewhere between 3.7 to 4 stars. Okay, that's kind of like a weight off my chest, so that's good. So before I move on to the fanfiction aspect of things, I do want to briefly touch, I suppose, on my 2020 goals, because that seems to be a popular thing to do. Although I don't necessarily have any goals, hear me out. I would certainly love to read more physical books and, keep a balance between the physical and the fan fiction. I can dream. I'm not really the sort to do any TBRs, which is to be read books. I've never done, up to this point, any of those videos, because I'm very much a mood reader. I don't plan out what I'm going to read. I just read what I am in the mood for at that moment. So it would be hard for me, I suppose, to have any kind of concrete, this is exactly what I'm going to read. The closest I'm going to get is just this year in 2020, perhaps reread the Harry Potter the Harry Potter series, read some classics, because I do have a Jane Austen novel, and what the fudge is it? I have The Count of Monte Cristo. Y'all, I bought that book, I swear, like 10 years ago. So that's a classic I might end up reading. Who knows? I may also dip my toes into some lightly spooky things. Again, I don't like to be scared. And some Star Wars, because there's a lot to pick from there. So I guess let's move on to fan fiction? Sure. In November and December, I have been reading a fair amount of fan fiction. A majority of it has been stories that are short. They have been under 20,000 words and below. I'm not going to talk about all of that. Instead, there are just 4 much longer stories that I want to highlight and talk about. And by the way, all of them, they are within the Check Please fandom. And if you are unfamiliar with Check Please, we love visuals. Okay, I've actually talked about this one specifically in a previous video, but yeah, it's one of my favorite still in progress comics that is happening. It's a webcomic, and I will also leave that link down below. It's a webcomic and also published as well, because Ngozi Ukazu, who is the author of this, she's just amazing. This story great. The comic centers around the protagonist, right there, Eric Biddle, during his 4 years of college, and he plays college hockey. He is fantastic at hockey. He's a Southern boy that he's just made of sunshine. He is wonderfully gay. He's just the sweetest person. And yeah, there's just a lot of really awesome friendships in this story, in this comic that takes place, and that almost cut my chin, as well as a romance that just, it warms my heart. So, I'm gonna put the visual down. I read 4 stories, yeah? The first story I want to highlight is called All Hail the Underdogs by XIAQ. Shia? I'm not sure. That person. This particular story, if you want to know, it's 76,000 words. I flippin' love this author. Their stories, I've only read 2 of their stories, and it's the 2 stories I'm going to be talking about. Their stories are very character-driven, which it definitely seems to be my jam when it comes to storytelling. Their humor is just right up my alley. They're flippin' hilarious. This particular story, All Hail the Underdogs, it focuses on 2 characters who in the Check Please proper story, I guess, are side characters, William Poindexter and Derek Nurse. They're also on the hockey team. They are defensemen. Anyways, I feel like that's the only backstory that you really need to know. The story just follows these 2 boys in their first year, their freshman year of college, and they're on the hockey team. They are defensemen, and because of their personalities, they do clash a lot. As well as, so Dex, he is a white boy. He is from Maine. He grew up in a predominantly white area, so he's definitely ignorant to definitely people of color. And speaking of, so Nursey, he is a black boy, but he was adopted and raised by white parents, and his parents very wealthy. So they definitely have very different backgrounds, and the story just follows them learning how to flip and talk and communicate. And Nursey definitely has to educate Dex on, well, what an asshole society can be towards people of color. In this specific case, a black person. And for Dex, he has to end up teaching and kind of educating Nursey about his own privileges as far as wealth goes. And that's actually a big thing right there, is this author is just really good about touching on a lot of essentially sensitive but important topics. And I think they handle it in a very caring and careful way. And they're really good about balancing not only the heavy topics, but weaving in the humor. And yeah, it's a really nice blend of everything. And in this particular story, this story does touch on racism, homophobia, classism, poverty, and it doesn't go too deep into this, but there is talk about child abuse as well, so just so you all know. In summary, this story is about two dumb boys learning how to freaking talk about their dang emotions. It's great. Moving on to the other story that is by XIAQ. Now this particular story, and actually, you know what, the next 3 stories, to be perfectly honest, these are all rereads because I like to revisit stories that I am familiar with, and I don't know, I guess to procrastinate in reading anything new. So anyways, this story is 153,000 words. It's a long one, but so worth it. Now this is what is called an AU, or alternate universe. Gosh, this might be very confusing for any of you out there that are not familiar with fan fiction, but this is an alternate universe storyline that follows 2 characters. One is Kent Parson from Check Please, and I guess the history of Kent Parson in Check Please is he's a minor character. He is a professional hockey player. He plays for a team called the Las Vegas Aces, and he has a history with one of the main characters, Jack Zimmerman. That's really all you need to know about him. And also in the comics, he is present maybe 10% of the time. Again, very minor character. But in this story, he's a major character. This story follows Kent and an original male character called Eli. I love Eli. What a doll. He's such a doll. As well, the representation in this story is just... because Eli, he is a person of color. He is very gay, and he has a disability. So freaking kudos, hats off. All right, this story takes place in the span of a year. Again, very character driven. Very quickly, the story opens up with Eli. He meets Kent Parson, and Kent Parson he's kind of introduced. He doesn't mean to, but Kent ends up doing and saying a couple things that are very asshole-ish, and to make up for his actions and his words, he ends up taking Eli on a date. Now, at that time, Eli doesn't realize that this is a date, and also because it takes a while for Eli to learn that Kent is also gay. I guess the point is Eli charms Kent. Kent does end up charming Eli and making up for the things that he did. This entire story, it follows Eli and Kent being friends, growing closer, and then being more than friends. So it's like friends to lovers kind of trope, especially because Kent, he is also a professional hockey player in this, and I know basically bupkis about the National Hockey League, but from my understanding, in the real world, professional hockey in particular is very homophobic. So that's carried over into not only this story, but just like anything to deal with like Check Please and Check Please fan fiction. Yeah, and I also mention this because Kent, while he is gay, he is also very closeted. And Eli, he's very out and proud being gay, so it goes through them working through a relationship and things happen. And just like the previous story that I talked about, this story also touches on all of the heavy stuff: homophobia, anxiety, racism, ableism. And once again, I think this author just does a fantastic job of handling these topics with care and really exploring them. Beautifully done. Also hilarious. Did I mention that? Flippin' hilarious. Did I sell you on that? I really hope I did. Seriously, check it out. The next two stories are both by Mars with Ghosts, and this is a favorite author that I talked about in my fanfiction author recommendation. Yeah. So the first one is a story called A Little Bit Closer. This story is 107,000 words. Another long one. And this is also another AU, an alternate universe. And this particular story, it focuses on Eric Biddle and Jack Zimmerman. Crap, this is actually kind of a spoiler to the comics. Eric and Jack, they end up together, and I love them. So they're the main couple in this story. Eric, he's a librarian in this one, didn't go to Samwell with Jack. I don't think Jack went to Samwell. Jack still ends up playing in the NHL. The story essentially kind of starts off with Jack. He is also a up-and-coming author, children's author, and Eric, he works in the children's section of the library. And because Jack is going to come to the library and do a signing, so they happen to meet, things spark. They hit it off, basically, which of course they are. If I remember correctly, I believe Jack, I think he's already out in the NHL. I think it's already known that he is bisexual. I just recently reread this, and this is the second time I've read this story, but whatever. Details. So I don't think that Eric and Jack in this story, I don't think they have to deal with like anyone being closeted, but they do have to deal with asshole people, homophobic people, fans, and just people in the NHL in general. So they had to go through those trials and tribulations, and just these two coming together as a couple and building their relationship, a strong relationship. I don't know, they're darling, okay? Eric, he's a darling. Jack, he's a darling. I flippin' love these characters so much, and I really want you all to read this. Whether you're familiar with Check Please or not, go do it. Bah! And I guess a warning, this story, as I essentially already touched on, it does touch on homophobia and anxiety. The next and final story is done. Oh shoot, my battery's about to die. No, I've been talking too long. I'll be right back. I don't remember what I was saying. The fourth and last story. It's called If This Isn't Nice, I Don't Know What Is. This is a sequel to A Little Bit Closer, but this story, which is 48,000 words, just so you know, this story focuses on Kent Parson and an original male character named Javier. Now in this story, Kent, he is still a hockey player. This story is also an AU, an alternate universe, especially since it has an original character. Anyway, I guess a big difference, or a difference, with Kent in this particular story, he does have borderline personality disorder and he has anxiety. This story focuses on Kent healing and growing as a person, and along for the ride? Is that how I want to phrase it? Sure, along for the ride is Javier. Now Javier, he is a professional baseball player. He is a catcher, to be specific. As well, he is a person of color and bisexual. Very proud of that fact. And oh, Javier. Another original character that I flippin' love because he's built like a tank on steroids, and he is just sunshine personified. As well, I know he's a fictional character, but I just want to be his best friend because he's such a warm person, and he's just so patient and understanding. Everybody can learn a thing or two from Javier, is what I'm saying, and Kent definitely does, and I think Javier, he learned some stuff from Kent as well. At the beginning of the story, there is a fundraiser going on, and that's where these two meet, Kent and Javier. They do hit it off. It starts off with friendship, and things slowly grow into a romance, and it definitely has to go slowly because I believe Kent, he is in the closet, and he has been in the closet for a very long time. As you can imagine, there's just so much to deal with around that kind of situation. Things do move slowly. It's a good thing. Things do move slowly towards the whole romance aspect with Kent and Javier. And Javier, like I said, he's such a doll in this. He's just so dang supportive of Kent throughout the whole thing. He's very understanding of who Kent is and how he is. I think that's a very strong thing about the characters, and I guess like the message of this entire story is just being patient with one another, especially with your significant other or soon-to-be significant other. Understanding boundaries, that's another really big thing, is understanding personal boundaries and respecting them. There is the power of friendship. There's just so much good from this story. Hold on, let me take a sip. Actually, I feel like that could be, for all of these stories that I've talked about, a very strong thread and just commentary on friendship and the importance of friendship and having like supportive people around you. I think that would like hit on in every single one of these stories, which I just absolutely love. I guess that's it. Once again, did I sell you on this? I really hope I did. At least I've just a flicker of a little flame of interest. Maybe, hopefully in Check Please. But if not in Check Please, maybe just in fan fiction in general. That would make my freaking day. That would make my freaking year. I'm doing a lot of freaking hand movements. That's just how I am. I think I've said all I needed to say. I've said a lot. Good lord, I probably should have given a warning at the very beginning of this video. I'm gonna talk a lot, but at the same time, if you saw the timestamp, you know that. Okay, actually, I guess 2 questions. 1, have any of you ever had a book that you just can't seem to finish, even though you've been enjoying it? Dracula is for me. What book has that been for you, if that's happened to you? I can't be the only one. And 2, unlike me, who doesn't necessarily have any goals for 2020, reading goals in 2020, if you have any reading goals for this new decade, this new year, let me know what that is in the comments below. If you stuck around this long, wow, thank you so much for watching. I hope you are having a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!